Hi there, I'm Bree, I like to read, and this is everything I read in the month of July. Kick the month off with The Ministry of Time. This ambitious debut novel is genre-defying, extremely romantic, and endorsed by Emily Henry. This is for readers who enjoy stories that blur the lines of traditional storytelling and tropes. This mashup is fun, funny, overachieving, but with something to say about refugees, assimilation, and diaspora. While it is true that this historical fiction, romantic comedy, contemporary speculative spy thriller doesn't really excel in any one particular genre, it's broadly successful at wildly breaking the rules and conventions of any one particular genre. Pick this one up for time travel stuffed with thrilling espionage, truly lovely prose, bringing wildly idiosyncratic characters, soft sunny afternoons, and bitter Arctic landscapes to life. It's also full of delightful dialogue between a Victorian naval officer plucked out of the 1840s and a biracial British-Cambodian translator in the 21st century. Overall, I thought this was a lovely debut with a little bit of something for everyone. Next, I read Priory of the Orange Tree. Of course, you got to see me read and react to this in real time, but in case you missed it, here are my thoughts. I do declare that the hype for this one is deserved. Priory is a rich, modern classic fantasy novel that checks all the boxes and then some. It's got strong and remarkable women, descriptive world building, rich, immersive writing, sharp political intrigue, clashing religions, glorious character arcs, riddles, mysteries, as well as high stakes and steep consequences. I am kicking myself for putting this off for so long purely because it looks big. Truly, it's lying to you. It is formatted unnecessarily very large. You probably have read many books that are longer than this. It just has thick pages, massive margins, and unreasonably big font. That being said, the author does put all 260,000 words of this book to excellent use. If you like the idea of sweeping epic high fantasy with a cast of kick-ass, powerful female characters, I'm talking queens, witches, warriors, and pirates, all in a world where gender equality is just a given. There's ancient magic, a gorgeous romantic subplot, we've got a secret order of female mages, as well as dragon riding, alchemy, and espionage. I ate up every single one of the intricately woven storylines, following characters from vastly different cultures and belief systems, all culminate into the most incredible tapestry of brilliant storytelling. Like many high fantasy novels, if you do pick this up, prepare for a steep learning curve for maybe the first 100 pages or so. I don't mind not knowing what's going on for a little bit, and I promise it does pay off. If you've been putting this off purely based on the size, do yourself a favor and just open up page 1 and let it unfold. I will absolutely be getting to the prequel, A Day of Fallen Night, very soon. If you're looking for the perfect summer ween book, might I suggest We Have Always Lived in the Castle by Shirley Jackson? So begins my journey into Shirley Jackson. This was my first novel of hers, and it will absolutely not be the last. This is excellent gothic horror vibes, which is my preferred flavor of horror. If you like the idea of an extremely short and sinister little mystery to leave you feeling delightfully uneasy, this is the one for you. Sign me up for impossibly nuanced, funny yet sinister, slow burn, quick read about loss and otherness with superb prose and absolutely unstable characters. This is Shirley Jackson's final work, and it's regarded as her best, and it's easy to see why. Someone poisoned the sugar bowl at the last Blackwood family dinner, killing nearly all of them. But there are a few family members left in the Blackwood family estate, and they are becoming increasingly more unhinged with every passing day. Naturally, this horrifies and entrances the local townsfolk who are prone to gossiping and whispering from afar. By far, my favorite part of this novel is the tantalizing narrative voice that is just riddled with dark humor. 5 out of 5 stars. I cannot wait to read more Shirley Jackson now. Next, I read Shark Heart, which is a stunning and spectacular novel about a husband who slowly transforms into a shark, and I loved it. This story is wildly original and weird. Told in non-linear timelines, we follow newlyweds Ren and Lewis as they receive the devastating diagnosis of a mutation. Lewis is transforming into a great white shark. All at once, Shark Heart is wildly bold and strikingly gorgeous. It's both surreal and grounded. It's both unique and all too familiar. These characters made me fall in love and then fall apart. At its core, this book is a deeply thoughtful meditation on hope and grief and loss and what it means to be human. What the author has achieved with this breathtaking debut is nothing short of miraculous. She has managed to create a one-of-a-kind story about transformation, but somehow leaves the reader as the one who's transformed. She also does this masterful blurring of storytelling forms. Sharkheart slips from prose to poetry to telling stories as though we are reading scenes from a play. And I think this will certainly go down as one of my favorite books of the year, maybe of all time. Next, I picked up Interesting Facts About Space. Meet Enid, a true crime-obsessed, neurodivergent lesbian with rat tattoos and a crippling fear of bald men. If you enjoy an ensemble cast of quirky characters, a bit of a mystery, and stories about young women struggling with their mental health, you will love this one. It's an intense, funny, bizarre, yet tender story about masking in everyday social situations, as well as navigating paranoia and debilitating anxiety. It's got this addictive stream of consciousness writing style that is extremely messy, and I think this will either feel deeply personal to you or extremely off-putting, depending on how much you relate to our main character. Our traumatized, anxious protagonist grew up deaf in one ear, and she's also afraid there may be a parasite inside of her that causes her to be a bad person. She has mommy issues, dating woes, and she's pretty sure she's being stalked. Definitely pick this up if you like reading about complex relationships and interesting facts about space. I then read It Came From the Closet: Queer Reflections on Horror. This is a series of personal essays, little mini memoirs covering everything from coming of age, coming out, finding community, to the intersection of queerness and gender, class, race, and disability. And every single one of them is told through the lens of horror films. In more ways than one, this book slays. If you're interested in an intersectional dissection of a genre that is innately queer, you will love this. I saw the words Jennifer's Body and Carmen Maria Machado all in a single sentence when describing this book, and I was sold. That was all I needed to know. I'm not particularly well versed in scary movies, and I don't think you need to be in order to enjoy this. However, if you are a horror movie buff, this is a must read for you. If you have ever felt otherness, or if you have ever identified with the villain or the monster more than the protagonist, maybe if you find yourself often in spaces you don't feel you belong in, if any of the films covered in this have been a mirror to you while you have explored your identity, if you've ever rewritten a horror film in your mind but with a queer lens, or if you just love horror movies, there's an essay in this for you. My favorites were Both Ways, which was about Jennifer's Body. I loved Three Men on a Boat, which explores Jaws. I was really caught off guard by The Trail of His Flames, which is about A Nightmare on Elm Street, which I've never actually seen. And Black Body Snatchers, which is about Get Out, was just absolutely incredible. So definitely pick this one up and let me know which ones you related to the most. After a pretty heavy month of reading so far, I decided that I was in the mood for a summer romance, so I picked up Summer Fridays. And in this one, I came for the vibes, and I mostly stayed for the vibes. This is a melancholic, sun-soaked New York City romance with absolutely lovely prose. It's got 1999 to 2001 era AIM nostalgia, so think You've Got Mail vibes. And this is basically Coney Island by Taylor Swift, but in book form. We follow extremely messy characters exploring the city on long, lazy summer Fridays. It's a somewhat epistolary dial-up love story about very messy, very lost, confused 20-something-year-olds trying to find themselves in a New York City summer heatwave. There is something just so delicious about pre-cell phone era stories to me, and I will always enjoy a book that centers New York City as more than just a setting. However, there are some tropes in this one that will give some readers major ick. It's me. I'm some readers. I really wanted our main character to make some different choices, and I was loving the languid, leisurely pace of this book until the ending, which was just completely rushed. What? So yeah, this was fine. Then I read Jesus and John Wayne: How White Evangelicals Corrupted a Faith and Fractured a Nation. Jesus and John Wayne is a very in-depth study tracing how the church has twisted a faith in order to promote a rigid and deeply conservative version of masculinity. This is a very cohesive and exhaustive study of the way that Christian nationalism in America has pervaded from the 1900s all the way through the 2016 US presidential election. According to the recasting done by nationalist evangelicals, Jesus was basically Rambo. This explains why your white, militant, conspiracy theorist, pejorative-wielding Republican uncle, who was wildly offended by the Olympics opening ceremony on Facebook, thinks that a geriatric felon is somehow an ideal role model. As a deconstructed ex-evangelical, I found this to be deeply depressing, but necessary, to see the patterns of victim blaming, of extreme militant nationalism, and the insidious effects of a movement that wasn't instigated by Donald Trump. It wasn't transformed by Trump, but rather exposed for a wider audience to witness. This is very well written and very well researched, and the author comes with receipts in hand. This will leave any deconstructed reader grappling with the weight of their complicity. Even though a lot has happened since this came out in 2020, it was very timely to read this during an election year. It was very challenging and very eye-opening, and unfortunately, I do think it will be lost on the audience that will benefit from it the most. Yeah. Next, I read Perfume and Paine, and I loved this. This is an unhinged, messy, neurotic, sardonic lesbian drama following a self-destructed, semi-cancelled author during her journey of self-medicating, unraveling, and self-discovery. It has the most sharply written and impossibly witty satire. It somehow manages to be both caricature and extremely honest. And this has the most consuming, delicious prose that I could smell off the page. I don't know. In fact, I am ready for my Perfume era. If you love unlikable female main characters who are both hateable yet relatable, deeply flawed, deliciously disastrous, and yet extremely self-aware, you will love Astrid. It's campy, it's trashy, it's funny, it's unflinchingly genuine. Gorgeous heartache, all in a richly dazzling setting. This is for fans of Fleabag and Chapel Roan, and it belongs on your shelf alongside Didion and Babbitts and Moshfegh. It's a banger. Last but certainly not least, I read The Fetishist. Now, this is a posthumous release edited by the author's daughter. It is a Lolita-esque story about a white violinist with an Asian fetish and the two women that he impacts. The Fetishist is a truly unique and unexpected story featuring a Japanese punk rock artist who is hell-bent on revenge, a Korean-American cellist diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, a violinist who exclusively pursues Asian women. There is a kidnapping, a revenge murder plot, and a pufferfish neurotoxin. I found this to be extremely tense and sometimes very funny. Somehow it was very subtle and nuanced while also being extreme and heavy-handed, and my expectations were continuously subverted along the way. I could not look away from the uncomfortable parts, but I was drinking in every line of stunning descriptive writing. The phrase "a buttered wedge of sunlight" keeps bouncing around in my brain rent-free. It's full of symbolic and lyrical motifs of beauty and art and loss and grief and rage. This was an intense read about rage and shame and grief, but it was also deeply funny. It also has a lot to say about the fetishization of Asian women, as well as women's pain, male culpability, and the cultural intersection between power and exploitation. Overall, I loved the stunning writing, the thrilling twists, as well as the provocative portrayals of reckonings on every other page. If all of this sounds good to you and you pick this up, definitely make sure you read the afterword. It is one of the most incredible things I have ever read. So those are all the books that I read in the month of July. Overall, it was a really excellent reading month. I loved almost every single book I read, and I found some new favorites of all time. So let me know in the comments what your favorite book that you read in the month of July is, and if any of these piqued your interest, and if you'll be checking them out. I can't wait to hear what you think. As always, thank you so much for being here. It means the world to me, and I will see you next week with another video. Bye!